Hey, my name's Liz and I sell on Poshmark, eBay, and Mercari. Today I am talking about my top 50 sales from the second half of the year. I did this from January to June earlier in the year. I can link that video if you didn't see it, but these are my top 50 sales from July 1st through December 31st. So I think my top 2 sales of the year are on this side, which is great. I have been trying to pick up some higher end pieces that I'm paying up for a little bit more, but I think that you'll see that for at least the top 2, my profit was absolutely worth it. So I believe the first item starts at $65 and then we go up from there. Majority of my pieces are thrifted. I have a handful that I retail arbitraged, but majority of them are secondhand. I'm not buying from like Nordstrom Racks or Marshalls, those kind of places for the most part. And none of this is like online purchases that I'm reselling, besides a couple items from ThredUp mystery boxes. The first piece is actually a kid's piece. It was a jacket by the brand Molo. And they, once you have kind of learned that brand, you will be able to spot it really quickly. They have very aggressive patterns that at first I would have thought was like a Amazon brand or like one of those kind of weird brands from China where like the image almost looks like they just copy and pasted a bunch of stuff on top of each other, but they're not pixelated like the ones you would get from like kind of a scam almost type site, but that's what they do remind me of. This sold for $65. I found it at a Once Upon a Child, which is a kids consignment or buy sell trade store. I paid $16 for it. After the fees of selling it on Poshmark and my cost of goods, I made $36 on that, which I think is pretty good for kids' clothes. Next up, we have a pair of shoes from the brand Farm Rio. These originally came from Nordstrom Rack, but they were my sister's and she didn't wear them, so they were still brand new when she gave them to me to sell. And these actually sold on eBay International or eBay Global Shipping. If you sell on eBay and don't have global shipping turned on, you definitely should. From your end, you don't have to do a single thing differently. They just get sent to Illinois and then they handle the international part, and it's actually great because they can't really return the pieces to you. So once it goes through, it's pretty much a guaranteed sale. So these went to the UK. I have the cost of goods on these being $25. I think that's what my sister said she paid for them at Nordstrom Rack. So I must have had the shipping a little too high on this because I have that my earnings are $63.05. So obviously with the fees and everything, there would normally be more of a loss there. So I must have made a couple dollars on shipping by accident, but in the scheme of it, it all evens out. So after fees and cost of goods, I have that I made $38.04 on these, and most of that's gonna go to my sister. I just keep what I need to pay for taxes when I do consignment for my family. It's not really consignment. They just don't sell online. They give me stuff and I list it. Next up, we have a pair of jeans from the brand Goldie, which is one of my favorite jean brands to sell. There may be another pair on here, or these could possibly be the best-selling pair of this part of the year. This was a style and color that was still available for sale on Revolve, so it was super current. They were like a regular straight jean, but just a really current style. They took about 40 days to sell. I picked these up for $16 at Plato's Closet, which is like Once Upon a Child. It's a buy sell trade store. So I do pay a little bit more than I would at thrift stores when I find things at those stores, but they are somewhat curated. I say that with a grain of salt because mine definitely has a lot of junk, but I do usually find a few good pieces of denim every time that I go there. These sold for $67 on Poshmark. And after fees and cost of goods, I get $34.02 for these, which I am definitely happy for a pair of jeans. Next up, we have a romper that almost looked like a dress from Anthropologie. The brand was Vanessa Mooney, and this sold in just one day. I had actually already sold this exact same piece, so all I had to do was change the size, which is always the best, and I'm finding more and more that happens sometimes when I have been selling so many things for years that you do run into the same pieces. Like Madewell, I've sold the same pair of Madewell jeans I don't even know how many times. This one I paid $8 for at my favorite thrift store, and it sold for $67. So after fees and cost of goods, I make $45.60 on this, which I am definitely happy about. Rompers don't always do the best anymore, but this was a really cool style and I'd love to find this same one again. Next up, we have a pair of rag and bone pants that I found at Plato's Closet. They're called the Miramar joggers, and the Miramar style in general is one you want to look out for from this brand. It's like their sweatpants that look like jeans. At least last year they were very popular. We'll see if that continues into 2026. But the jogger style is actually the less desirable of the styles of them. Like if you found the wide leg ones, that's even better. I paid $14 for these and they sold for $67 again in just about a week too, so a nice fast sale. So after fees and cost of goods, I make $39.60 on these, and they sold on Poshmark too. Next up, we have one of the handful of men's pieces on this list. I definitely sell far more women's than men's pieces. I found these at the Goodwill outlet, so I only paid like $1.50 for this. It is a men's bathing suit from the brand Vilabriquin. It's a really, I'll put the name up here. It's a really weird name, but these were brand new. They retailed for over $200. I believe, and they even were still in a dust bag, so I saw the dust bag in the thing and just grabbed it. I had sold this brand before, but I didn't even remember that when I picked it up. I just threw the dust bag in my bag, and it was a happy surprise for what was in it when I opened it after the chaos of the start of the round was over. These sold on eBay in about a month for $67.50. So I make $62.32 after fees and cost of goods on these. Next up, we have another pair of jeans that I found at Plato's Closet, so that makes 3 so far. These were from the brand Reformation, and they were the Cynthia high-rise style. I paid $15 for these, and they sold for $68 on Poshmark, which makes my profit after fees and cost of goods $39.40, and they sold in a little over a month as well. Next up, we have our first Mercari sale of the list. I think there's only a couple. I definitely don't have a ton of Mercari sales in general, but they tend to be in more of like the $25 range. But this was an Anthropologie jumpsuit. It was wide leg. It almost was like an overall style, and it had a lot of embroidery on it. It may have even been brand new, I don't remember. But I paid $20 for this at a thrift store. It sold for $70 on Mercari, and they have very low fees, which is one of the benefits of selling there, and why I kind of do still list there, as well as when I cross post there. It's a very quick, easy process. It takes less than 30 seconds usually to do the cross post to Mercari, so to me it's still worth it. And I made $42.18 after fees and cost of goods. This next one was a really quick sale and did a little better than I was honestly expecting. It sold in just 2 days, and it is a quince wool jacket. And I do pick up quince a lot. It's usually a fast mover for me, but it's not always high profit because it's kind of geared towards being a lower price point for quality items and like better fabric. I found this at a thrift store for $25. I looked at comps pretty heavily on this because I normally would not pay $25 for a quince piece. It sold for $72, which makes my profit after fees and cost of goods $32.60. So definitely was happy with that, especially with it selling in just 2 days. I don't buy that many jackets because I hate storing them. They don't fit into my traditional inventory system. So when I can move them out quickly, I do tend to take offers on them. I think I had that listed for like 90, so it may have just been me sending out an offer on that with my Posher VA, but either way, I was definitely happy to move that jacket out in just 2 days. Next up is another jacket, but I found this one at the bins. It was a men's J. Crew, I think it was called the Dock style. It was a peacoat style jacket. This one sold on eBay for $73, and this one sold in 2 weeks. So again, a pretty quick move on a jacket makes me happy. After fees and cost of goods, I made $59.72 on this piece. Another super quick sale. This one was 2 days again. This was a tuckernuck dress, and it was kind of a shirt dress style, and it was in a print that I would have guessed was, I knew it was animal print, but they called it antelope print, which I thought was interesting. I would have probably guessed deer print or something, but if you don't know tuckernuck, that is a great brand to look out for. It used to be almost always like an instant sale. Some pieces have definitely slowed down a little bit, but I still pretty much always pick it up. I paid $10 for this. It sold for $75 on Poshmark, so I get $50 after fees and cost of goods in just 2 days. Another 2-day sale, which is kind of funny because I don't traditionally think of myself as being a like fast selling reseller. Like I don't look to turn things over immediately. But I guess when I find these really good pieces, clearly they are going quickly. So these were a pair of jeans by the brand AYR, which I've only found once before, but one I definitely look out for. They were called the Knockout style, and they were actually a barrel jean, which is definitely the most, I guess like sought after style of jean right now that people are looking for. It's usually pretty obvious once you pick them up from like pulling them out of the rack that they're a barrel jean. And I've even sold Old Navy barrel jeans. I just picked up a pair from Gap the other day, so to me it doesn't even matter what brand it is. I will pretty much always grab a barrel jean unless they're priced outrageously. I found these at Value Village, which I don't go to very often. I find their prices to typically be pretty outrageous. These were $10 and they were, I believe, 75% off there that day. So they had them listed for $40, which I would never pay for a pair of jeans. These sold for $75. So after fees and cost of goods, I make $46.72 on these. Actually, another super quick sale. This one was 3 days for a St. John's jumpsuit, and this is a brand I would definitely say is normally a very slow sale for me. St. John is a very expensive brand, and they are known for Santana knit fabric, which this was, but a jumpsuit is not what I've ever found from this brand before. It's usually more like business or suit type items, so to find a kind of stylish jumpsuit was a nice surprise. I paid $15 for it at a thrift store, and it sold for $75 on Poshmark. So I get $41.72 after fees and cost of goods. And I thought this would sit for a pretty long time. So 3 days was definitely a shock on this one. Another piece that I have actually sold before, so I just had to change the size on, was this Lily Pulitzer Charlene maxi dress. It is colorful, but it's not in a traditional Lily print. It's like a clip dot but like multicolored. This sold in 11 days, and maxi dresses are definitely the best selling category from Lily, especially if you can find one in a caftan style. So I did pay up to $30 for this from a thrift store that is pretty expensive, but they usually have really great stuff. So I only go there every once in a while because I don't like to pay up as much as they're asking. So this sold for $75 on Poshmark. I get $30 after fees and cost of goods. But I had to do no photographing, no work on it. It probably even sold before I fully got it into my inventory system. So basically brought home and shipped out. Next up, this one took 99 days to sell, so they aren't all quick sales. This one is from the brand Lafayette 148, which I will normally pass on in regular thrift stores. And when I find it at the bins, I send it to thredUP almost always. I have sold some pieces, but it's definitely usually outdated or very businessy pieces, which don't traditionally do great for me in my closet. This was a gorgeous silk midi dress with a belt in a chocolate brown color. I paid $10 for this, and it sold on Poshmark for $75. So I get $50 after fees and cost of goods, which is probably the best I've ever done on a piece from this brand. And it retailed for something crazy. Like, I think it was over $1,000 or something ridiculous like that. But I was really happy to find such a nice piece from this brand. In the opposite, this is a brand I think I picked up every time I found it, and that is Hill House. This was a nap dress from them, which is their most popular style. And this one had like a kind of mermaid print on it. It was a midi dress. This sold in just 8 days. I paid only $7 for it, and it sold for $75 on Poshmark. So after fees and cost of goods, I get $53 for this. And I would say that's pretty average for a piece from this brand at this point. But it is one I am so excited when I find it in the thrift store. Next up is one I paid a little too much for. You'll see this brand on here quite a few more times, and that is Sashin and Babby. It is a brand that is sold through Beholden at Anthropologie, and they make the most beautiful dresses that you would wear to be a wedding guest. I have one black tie, one on here that did amazing. They also have some really beautiful bridal pieces. I sold one that was like a white sequin. I don't remember if that's on here or if that's sold in 2026, but you may see that coming up. So this one I bought at Retail 101, which is an Anthropologie outlet in Connecticut. That I've gone to a handful of times, and the pieces I get there usually do really well, and you'll see a few more on here. But this one, for whatever reason, did not, and it sat for over 100 days. I paid $45 for this, and it sold on Poshmark for $75. I don't quite know why this one, compared to the other ones, didn't do as well. But just kind of a lesson in not paying quite so much for, it was a little less formal, I guess, than some of them. So just to be careful of what I'm paying up for and not just always grabbing this brand when I see it. So I only made $15 after fees and cost of goods, which is fine. I make that on smaller items that I sell all the time. But I don't want to pay $45 to only make $15. That's not a great business model. Next up, we have another Lily Pulitzer piece, which if you watch my videos, you know that is one of my favorite brands. This one sold in just a week, and it was a new with tags, just solid red dress. And it sold in September, but I imagine someone was looking for it for the holidays. I paid $20, but it sold for $76 on Poshmark. and I get $40.80 after fees and cost of goods, which at this point is pretty good for a Lily dress that is not a maxi style. And this one, I am not surprised that it only took 2 days to sell. This is a Aritzia Super Puff jacket, which is probably the best selling at this point pieces you would find from Aritzia. It is their black puffer coats. They maybe come in other colors, but I think I've only ever seen black. I found this at a Plato's, and they had it not branded as Aritzia. They just had it as like a no brand jacket. So I only paid $14 for this, and it sold for $78 on Poshmark. It was missing the hood, but if it wasn't, it probably would have gone for over $100. So I make $48.40, and another quick moving jacket is what I always hope for with them. This is another piece that I was selling for my sister, and I have that they took 161 days to sell, but I know that these were relisted at least once, and I had them for over 2 years. It is a pair of sandals from the designer Celine, and I don't know why these took so long to sell, honestly. She had given me another pair of shoes from Celine, and they sold really quickly. So I don't know why these sat for so long. They were arguably the cuter pair of the two as well. So I don't have any cost of goods into these. I don't know what she paid for them, but she wore them quite a bit. They're still in great shape, but she definitely got some use out of them. They sold for $80. I think I had them listed for $200, and after they had sat for so long, I just took the offer. So I made $64 on these, but that's all going to my sister besides what I need for taxes. Then we actually have another pair of designer shoes. These are a pair of Prada booties. They came from a ThredUp DIY designer box that was not a great box, so I'm glad that these did pretty well. I have my cost of goods as $20 on these, which is usually what I pay per piece in those designer DIY boxes. They sold for $80 on Poshmark. So after fees and cost of goods, I made $44 on these, which is not great for Prada shoes, but they were a really cute style, but they had quite a bit of wear. Like the toes definitely were a little scraped up, and I think one of the heel caps needed replacing. But they sold pretty quickly, so I'm okay with that. We have a brand I had never heard of, and you'll see it once more on this list as well. The brand is Pine & Smith, and it was a case of me seeing the tag on the rack in the thrift store as I was flipping through, not ever having heard of the brand before, but the tag looking expensive enough that it seemed worth me grabbing, and I believe it was made in the US too, which is always a sign of quality. So it was a very cottage core traditional style piece of clothing. So I used a lot of keywords. I wasn't sure how popular of a brand this was, but it sold in a week. This is actually the only piece that was part of a bundle on this list, but I paid $13 for it. And with like the bundle discount whole thing, what they told me I made on this was $82.19 for this dress. So after fees and cost of goods, I made $52.75 on a piece I'd never heard of that I just took the chance of looking up. So I always try to, when I see something interesting, grab it at the thrift store to at least look up, and helps me learn new brands or brands that I immediately put back on the shelf. Next up, we have a shoe brand that I will always get excited to find, and that is Teeks. This was a pair of metallic ballet flats. I found them at my thrift store for $12, and they sold for $84 on Poshmark. So after fees and cost of goods, I made $55.20 on these, and they're usually really easy to spot because of the bright turquoise bottom of these shoes. I think all, I don't know, do they make shoes that aren't ballet flats? I've certainly never found them, but this was a huge bolo when I started reselling, and I've only come across them maybe 4 or 5 times, but I still definitely do a little happy dance every time I found them, even though they don't do quite as amazing as they did 5 years ago, but still for a good price, worth the pickup to me. Next up, we have an eBay sale that I think is probably one that feels surprising to be this high on the list, and that is a jacket from Athleta, which at this point, there's a lot of pieces from Athleta that I pass on, but this was a really cute puffer jacket in like a light purple, and I actually found this at the kids consignment sale that I sell at every year, and you can bring adult pieces. I've never brought adult pieces to sell. I don't think they generally do great there, but I always peek through them because people a lot of the time don't have the same mindset of, you know, knowing what this is worth online. So, you know, wasn't expecting to buy a women's jacket there, but I'm happy that I did. This sold for $85. I paid just $15, and after fees and cost of goods, I made $59.66 on this. It did take 49 days to sell, but at least this one I could squish down enough with the puffer material that it did fit in my inventory system. Next up, we have another eBay international sale, and this is once again a pair of jeans that I found at Plato's Closet. So this video is definitely showing me that I am doing something right in paying up a little bit for great jeans there. But these were from the brand L'Agence, which I almost always pass on the jeans that I find because they're usually like mid-rise skinny jeans, but these were a 2025 style called the Scotty, and they were like an ultra wide leg jean. They retailed for just shy of $300, and these went to Canada. I think it was like Vancouver, so the opposite side of the country to me. But I paid $18 for these at Plato's. They sold for $88, and I made $65.12 after fees and cost of goods. There's way more jeans on this list than I realized, which is great because it's definitely a category I always look at in the stores. But this is a pair of Alice and Olivia jeans, which once again, I almost only find skinny jeans from this brand, but this was such a cool style. They were called the Beautiful High-Rise Ruffle Jean, and they were like a huge flare, like this wide of a flare with like pleats. They were really cool, super like 70s style. I paid $20 for them at my favorite thrift store, and they sold for $90 on Poshmark, so I make $52 after fees and cost of goods on those. And yeah, they were really like such a fun style. They would definitely take a unique person to wear them, or like an occasion to wear them. They're not an everyday jean, but they were really fun. Next up is that other dress from the brand Pine and Smith, and again, it was a really cottage core trad wife kind of style. I think this one was gingham. I paid just $10 for this one, and it sold for $93 in 4 days. So again, just a really great brand to look out for. I don't know if I'll ever find it again. That's not really the style of pieces that I tend to find in my area, so it may have just been luck, but either way. And I made $62.90 after fees and cost of goods on that. Next up is the piece that took the longest to sell besides those Celine shoes, and this is from Tuckernuck, which, like I said, is usually a pretty decent sale for me, but this was a plain black midi-length sweater dress. I think it was new with tags, but it isn't what people are necessarily looking for from Tuckernuck. They're looking for those more preppy, southern, occasion style pieces, and this was definitely one you could find at lots of other stores for less money. I got this at a thrift store when I was with my mom in Pennsylvania. I don't know what it was called, but they had definitely overstock. Like they must have bought pallets from like a Nordstrom Rack type situation or something like that, because they had tons and tons of new with tag stuff. Most of it they had priced really high. I paid $30 for this dress and it sold for $93, which is a great selling price. I wish I hadn't paid $30 for it, but I still made $44 after fees and costs of goods. It just took nearly a year to sell, but still a decent profit for having paid that much for it. Next up is a great sale, and this was a vintage Coach bag that I found at my favorite thrift store. It was a mini, like it was only this big, and it was called the mini belt bag crossbody, because you could take it, the strap could either be for like a fanny pack, or you could take it and make it like a normal purse. It was so cute. I found it for $20 at my favorite thrift store, and it sold for $95 in just 5 days on Poshmark, and I got $56 after fees and costs of goods. And I love finding and selling vintage Coach. Not like the Y2K styles. I don't really touch those. I know there's great money to be made there in those styles, but I just don't know enough about it to delve deep into that. But more so I'm looking for those leather vintage Coach with the kiss lock, or like the turn lock. Those are the styles that really get me excited for a Coach. Next up is a piece from the brand Rami Brooke, and this is definitely the best a piece from this designer has ever sold for me. This was a wedding guest type dress. It was a strapless ruffle navy blue dress. I want to say it was new as well. I paid $20 for it at the thrift store, and it sold for $98 on Poshmark. So I get $58.40 after fees and costs of goods on that. And I think that most of the time when I find this brand, it's one specific style that's a bit outdated, and I do pick it up for a good price point because it will still sell, but nowhere for near as much as this one did. Next up, we have a bins find, and this was a dress that ended up being one that was sold at Anthropologie, but the brand was one I'd never heard of before, and that was Rujita. Sorry if I'm not saying this right. Rujita Sheth, and it was a maxi dress in like this very bright multicolor plaid print, and when I saw it in the bins, I immediately thought Anthro, but even if it hadn't been Anthro, I would have still picked this up at the bins. It was just such a fun style. So I paid about $2 for it, and it sold for $100 on Poshmark, which I believe was my full asking price, and in just 2 days. So I made $78 on that really fun dress. Another Anthro piece. This one I got at that Retail 101 Anthro outlet store. And I picked this up because I wanted to wear this dress to my cousin's wedding. But I got it in 2 sizes because I couldn't decide which size I liked better on me, and I knew I would just sell the other one. This was a like midi velvet dress with long sleeves, really fun, like fall, winter, wedding or holiday party style dress. I paid $35 for it. It sold for $100 on Poshmark, and I made $45 after fees and costs of goods on that, which I think is pretty good for it kind of being the spare dress that I wasn't sure if I was going to wear or not. Next up, we have another piece from a DIY designer box, and I knew that these would do well. This was a pair of Y2K Dior heels, and they almost looked like ballet flats on the front, and then they had little charms on it that spelled Dior. They were really cute, really like trendy Y2K style. So I knew that these would definitely be a popular piece. And I thought that they maybe were gonna sell on Depop. They had a lot of likes on all my platforms. They ended up going on Poshmark for $100. I think I had them listed for like $150 or $160, and I took an offer on them. I'm usually pricing my pieces to accept offers. I think like 80% of my Poshmark sales over time have been through offers, so I know that that's what is going to happen for my sales. So I do price for that in mind. So I paid $20 for these in the designer box. So I get $60 after fees and costs of goods. So those alone paid for half the box. I think 7 pieces come in those boxes. So for one piece to pay for half of it is great. I have had a couple where I have one piece to pay for more than the whole thing, but that's usually when you get lucky with a really good purse in them, which has not happened in quite a while. This is probably my highest profit margin piece on the list. This was a bins find. This was a baby Dior dress that I found at the bins. It was a little floral, teeny tiny, I think it was a 24-month baby dress. And people do not pick up kids' clothing at my bins. I pick up lots to sell at Once Upon a Child and to sell myself. But obviously, finding designer baby is even better than finding, I'm usually excited when I get a good Hannah Anderson or Minnie Bowden piece. But I paid about $1 for this. It sold on eBay for $100, which was my full asking price. So I get $89.03 after fees and cost of goods on that one. And I don't need to say, obviously, pick up Dior at the bins. This is the last international eBay sale on the list, and I can't even imagine what this girl must have paid in shipping for this because it went to Australia. This was an Anthropologie duvet set, so I think it was the duvet cover and 2 pillow shams. It was called like the Jeweled Garden. It was gorgeous. As soon as I saw it, I knew it was Anthropologie or like some other really great brand. It was so fun looking. So based on weight, I paid about $8 for this at the bins. It sold for $100 on eBay, and I got $87.39 after fees and costs of goods. And I do love picking up duvet covers. I don't really pick up comforters at the bins, but I will pick up duvet covers or sheets because I can fold them down to a reasonable size and ship them in like a reasonable sized box. But comforters take up way too much space. Unless it was some crazy brand, I probably wouldn't grab that. But I do like selling linens that I find at the bins. Next up, we have another Hill House dress, and this one was called the Vivi, and it was a little different than their traditional ones, but it still had the smocking. This one was new with tags. It took 25 days to sell, but I only paid $10 for this, and it sold for $106 on Poshmark. So I got $74.80 for it, and I saw it from like across the room, and I was like, I think that's Hill House, and I was right. You find a lot of dresses that are based on the style of Hill House dresses, but as soon as you touch it, you know that that material is so much nicer than when you're finding like the Shein, the Target, the Walmart, the even like the J. Crew ones, which I still do pick up kind of the J. Crew dupes of these styles. But when you find one, you'll say, okay, I know what you mean by that being like such a nice material. The next 2 pieces I got at an estate sale last November, so these did take about a year to sell, but they had both been relisted, so I guess I was wrong when I said that before. But this one is a Love Shack fancy sweater, and it retailed for something like so outrageous. It was a cashmere wool blend, little like cropped cardigan, and I averaged my pieces that I got at this sale. It was, I'll link that video because it was a crazy haul that I got from that, and I have very few pieces left to still sell. I've made like 1,000 plus from just this one estate sale. It was like a mom and 3 daughters, so much designer clothes. But my average cost of goods for everything was $13, and this sold for $120 on Poshmark. So I get $83 after fees and costs of goods. And yeah, I have so many estate sales in my area, but they are never like this. It is always not clothes that I'm interested in. It's usually like, you know, really old clothes. And not like the cool vintage style. It's more like 80s, 90s. That's not really, you know, older people, 80s, 90s, not really what I'm looking for, but this one was amazing. And then the next one was a pair of Stuart Weitzman over the knee boots. They were the Dunkirk style. Stuart Weitzman over the knee boots are probably the best selling category from this brand. Once again, paid $13. I definitely paid more for these, but I averaged everything together. I want to say I paid like $40 for these in theory, but they sold for $126 on Poshmark. I made $87.80, and these did take just over a year to sell. My only other Mercari sale on this list is this Lily Pulitzer maxi dress. It was the Ryland style, and it was in the You Gotta Regatta print, which is a pretty popular one, even though it's older. It's at least 10 years old at this point, if not more like 15. But it was a like very sought after maxi dress style. So I did pay $40 for this at that expensive thrift store that I mentioned before, but I knew that this one would do really well. It sold for $136. So I made $81.71 after fees and cost of goods. And I'm glad it sold on Mercari because I definitely had far lower fees on that than I would have on Poshmark or eBay. Next is another brand I had never heard of, but the tag looked interesting to me. I found these at Value Village and paid too much for them, but it ended up turning out okay. And they had them priced, I think, for like $100 or something, just completely ridiculous like that. I paid $33, and I think that was 75% off. So just far too much money for a thrift store to be charging for something, especially because they were a random brand. Like, that's usually the kind of pieces that they would miss charging up for. So I don't know why they had these so much. But anyway, they sold for $138.60 on eBay in like less than 2 weeks, and I made $92.08 after fees and cost of goods. So paying up for them definitely turned out good in my favor, but yeah, just me looking up another brand where the tag looked interesting enough to me to check for it being a good quality piece. This is the only Depop sale of the list, and this was a Selkie dress, which has been on my BOLO list forever. This one I found at a Buffalo Exchange in New York City. If that counts as thrifting or not, you decide. But a Buffalo Exchange is a buy-sell trade store that is pretty curated usually. But still, I had never found Selkie, even that was out of the price range that I wanted to pay for it. So this one was a mini dress. The maxi dresses probably do even better, but this was an all black mini dress. I paid $50 for it, but it sold on Depop for $140.25, and I got $73.28 after fees and cost of goods, which I am fine with for paying $50 for something, and just to get to sell that brand made me really happy. Then this is another estate sale find, but not that same one. This is a vintage Bottega Veneta bag, and it was like a plum color. It was like a shoulder bag, but it it was more of like a crossbody style, but the strap was short, so it wasn't a crossbody, if that makes sense. This estate sale had a lot of designer pieces, but they were really, really expensive. And for some reason, this one was only priced at $40. They had Chanel shoes for like $700, which is just ridiculous for an estate sale. And they also had some fake designer things, which makes me nervous when someone has like very obvious fakes and then like other designer. But this one was vintage and I could very much tell that it was real. So this sold on Poshmark for $150, and I had so many offers on this in like the $100 range. And I knew because I paid $40 for this that I was trying to hold out for a little more. I think this ended up having like 30 something likes on it. So I made $80 after fees and cost of goods, and was just really excited to get to sell a designer bag. This is that white sequin bridal dress that I was mentioning before. It did sell this year on December 20th. So this one was from Beholden. Again, it was a like white mini, just completely covered in sequins dress that would be so perfect for like a bachelorette party or an after party. I guess you could even wear it for New Year's if you wanted to wear white. But this one I paid just $18 for, and it sold for $150 on Poshmark. So I made $102 after fees and cost of goods. And I love picking up pieces like that. And this is the last pair of jeans on the list, and I was shocked when I found these. They were a pair of Ulla Johnson jeans. I didn't even really know that that brand made jeans. They retailed for, I think, over $400 or right around $400. They were a dark wash, wide leg jean. Couldn't be a better style for being a designer pair of jeans. I paid $20 for them at the thrift store. They sold on Poshmark for $187. I think I had them listed for $200, and that was an offer that someone sent to me. So my earnings after fees and cost of goods was $126.32, and I cannot believe I made that much on a pair of jeans. And this was a dress I was really excited to find from the brand Cezanne, and this was my thrift store has priced up Cezanne before too high for me to buy. So this one had a very strange tag. It wasn't their usual tag. So I think that helped me here because they only had it listed for $20, which is still a lot for a thrift store. But this one was a super current style, really gorgeous maxi dress. I was happy to pay $20 for it. It sold for my full asking price of $200 in just 9 days. So I made $140 after fees and cost of goods, which is probably the best I will do on a Cezanne piece, unless I found like a jacket or a gown or something. But I was so excited to come across this one. This is another dress that I got at Retail 101. This one was another Beholden one from the brand Helen O'Connor, which I had not heard of before, but it was new with tags, and it was another piece that would be a great bridal style. So for a reception dress, after party, bachelorette, it was a really pretty dress, and it retailed for something crazy. Like, their stuff is usually expensive, but this one was in particular like wildly expensive. I paid $35 for it, and it sold for $200 on Poshmark. So I made $125 after fees and cost of goods on this little mini dress. Then this is the last piece that I got from that store on this list. This is that Sasha and Bobby brand again. And this one was a true like black tie style dress. It was a black floor length gown from like more of like a taffeta material, and it had a huge bow on the back, and it was gorgeous. It was brand new. Their stuff is all new, but some of it is newly pieces, so it actually has been worn, and some of it doesn't have the actual tag on it. So this one did have the tag. It sold on eBay for $250, my full asking price. I paid $45 for it. So I made $176.07 on that piece, and it did take 72 days to sell, which in the scheme of it is really not bad for a gown like that. I was a little nervous when it sold on eBay, just because I've heard some horror stories of people like wearing a gown to an event and then returning it. So I was a little nervous when I get those like higher price sales on eBay, but luckily, that was in August, so I obviously didn't get that dress back, and hopefully that person loved wearing it. Next up, we have a Veronica Beard blazer, which is always the gold standard of what you're looking for in the blazer section. This was from that very expensive thrift store that I mentioned a couple times, but they did not have this priced up as much as they normally would price up Veronica Beard. Like, they have dresses from her same day, like $120, which obviously insane for a thrift store, and those pieces don't do that well from this brand. So I only paid $48 for this, which is a lot, but in the scheme of this thrift store, not bad. This sold on eBay for $262.50, which I think was an offer I sent out. So I made $168.55 after fees and cost of goods on that piece. And yeah, I'm always searching the blazers for Veronica Beard. Then next up is a brand I've been wanting to check off my BOLO list for a long time, and that is Mackage, and they make very expensive coats. And this was called the Nori K double collar coat. It was like a wool jacket that had two different zippers. It did have this interesting double collar on it. It retailed for like somewhere from like $800 to $1,100 or something like that. I paid $40 for it at my favorite thrift store. It sold on eBay for a full asking price of $300. So I made $208.73 on it. And it actually only went like 20 minutes away from me, which I always think is funny when something sells so local to me. But I was super excited that I found that brand and that I got $300 for it. And then the last piece on this list is a wildly expensive brand called The Row. I think it's Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen's brand, but I found a sweater at my favorite thrift store. It was called the Eid sweater, and it was a cashmere wool blend, plain brown looking, very minimalist, neutral, closet staple type of piece. I only paid $7.50 for this piece, and it sold for $308. After fees and cost of goods, I got $238.90 for that sweater. And that is everything. I will say that, like, yes, I have some of these really great sales, but the vast majority of my sales are right around $25, which I am fine with. Obviously, it's so exciting when one of these sells, but I definitely am more of a bread and butter seller, and I am fine with that. I like having lots of sales, more so than, just waiting for the one day a week where someone does buy that $300 piece. So yeah, I have to go do some shipping now, and thank you for watching. Thank you for watching my videos all year, and hope this was interesting. Maybe you learned a new brand. And yeah, so I will see you next time.